This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome to DRTSPR show. This is Dr. Tangella Shiva Prasad Reddy alias Dr. TSPR. Namaste, Adab, hello, and a warm welcome to Soumya Datta ji of SAPACC, and he has given his services to United Nations. I mean to say, in a different ways, I mean in different positions, he is of big help to many organizations, nationally, internationally, and locally, from Kolkata to India, India to United Nations. United Nations means America and all other countries. Recently, he had been on a trip to Middle East Gulf countries post the Turkey earthquake debacle. He was making them to understand the importance of the climate. वातावरण क्या रहना चाहिए, किस तरह रहना चाहिए, हम हर बार जिक्र करते रहते हैं. सौम्या दत्ता जी वो भरपूर उसमें माहिर है. हमारे देश से लेके विदेश तक, राष्ट्र से लेकर अंतर्राष्ट्रीय तक उन्होंने अपनी बुद्धि, जो ये वातावरण जो इसके ऊपर है, इस चर्चा के ऊपर, इनकी बुद्धि के द्वारा हम समझ रहे हैं ताकि हम विपत्कर परिस्थितियों से बच सके. क्या हम बच पाए, बच रहे, क्या हमारे बच्चे और हमारे फैमिली जो भी कहते हैं, हमारी संसार भविष्य में सही सलामत या माने सुरक्षित रहेगी. We are trying to understand what is the climate. We say everyone speaks these days about climate crisis. Some says this is nothing but an hoopla. For them, we gave them the scientific evidences and we invited them on the show with this wonderful guest. They don't come, but they try to make so many comments. We leave it to them because we never judge anyone. DRTSPR channels or Rumble or BitChute. DRTSPR channels are very clear in its agenda. Issue as per rule of law, Constitution invoking Evidential Act. No enmity against individuals, nor animosity against any parties or organizations. So, in the same pursuit, we are going to learn what about this climate changes which are happening every day in and day out in the name of development. विकास के नाम पर जिस तरह हम कंक्रीट जंगल पैदा कर रहे हैं, पेड़ पौधे खत्म, हमारी पूरी जो सुरक्षित जगह रहनी चाहिए, अब जहाँ जानवर ये हम इनकी बात करते हैं, फॉरेस्ट वगैरह, सब कुछ विकास के नाम पर खत्म. बुलेट ट्रेन हो या परिश्रम हो, सब कुछ हमारे जो भी है उसे नष्ट किया जा रहा है. हम सुरक्षित है? इसी के बदौलत ये अकाल वर्ष और इतनी गर्मी हम आजकल देख चुके हैं, देख रहे हैं. क्या है यही हमारी रीति और नीति भविष्य में भी रहेगी? द चेंजेस विच आर इम्पैक्टिंग हेवी रेन्स ऑल ऑफ ए सडन, एक्सट्रीम हीट एंड कोल्ड, ठंड भी ज़्यादा होता है एकदम. ये हम पिछले हमारे भूतकाल में इतना नहीं देखा. वी हैव नॉट सीन दिस इन द पास्ट दिस मच. बट ये क्यों हो रहा है? इज इट बिकॉज ऑफ द क्लाइमेट चेंज? एंड व्हाट इज दैट क्राइसिस? If this climate change becomes a crisis, are we going to be safe in the present? What about the future? Did we learn anything from the past? How important the climate crisis? This is what we are going to discuss with Soumya Datta ji. Sir, namaskar. I'm making you a
Namaskar.
presenter. Yes, sir, please go ahead. You are the presenter.
So, सबको फिर से नमस्कार and good afternoon, good day. Let us start talking, and as Dr. Reddy has started, I will also mix थोड़ा बहुत कभी-कभी हिंदी mix करके, so that ताकि ये सभी के पास जो हिंदी और अंग्रेजी दोनों का भाषा, तो मैं दोनों में थोड़ा-थोड़ा कभी mix करूँगा. ज़्यादातर अंग्रेजी में बोलूँगा, but I will also mix हिंदी little bit in between. तो आज का जो विषय शुरू करते हैं वो है क्लाइमेट चेंज. सुनते सुनते हमारा करीब 30-35 साल तो हो गया सबको. वी आर हियरिंग दिस फॉर मोर देन 30-35 years. But of late, many of the scientists, top scientists in the climate science world, and several media organizations, international media organizations, have stopped saying climate change. They have started calling it a climate crisis. In fact, if many of you might be aware that several groups in Europe have started, and even in US and other countries, have started a very active program what they call direct action in terms of calling a climate emergency. Because particularly the young people of today are extremely concerned that the way the Earth's climate systems and the related connected systems are changing and going towards collapse, whether they will have any future. Forget about your training, your education, your expectation of a good job. Like there is a very famous saying: on a dead planet, there are no good jobs. So, if the planet itself or the living system of the planet is going towards collapse, people cannot have good life, cannot have good job, cannot have good house unless you are a billionaire and you create a private sort of enclave. That is beyond the question for almost all people except a handful. So, for most people of the world, the climate systems are giving a warning which the scientists have repeatedly brought in, and now not only the scientists, even the United Nations agencies are bringing in that the climate systems are nearing collapse. If we look at the 2021 and 22, the 3+1 synthesis report of the biggest scientific panel, the IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, when they released their third report in April 2022, the headline that was there was "It is now or never." That means we have not done any action, appropriate action for stopping the climate crisis, and we must do urgent actions now, or it will never be possible to avert a climate crisis. Similarly, if you look at the recently released, or within 2 weeks, last 2 weeks or so, the WMO, the World Meteorological Organization, विश्व आबहावा संस्थान, उसको रिपोर्ट यदि देखें, रिलीज हुआ था अभी करीब 15-20 दिन के अंदर, that report is saying that we are actually going in the next 5 years, we are most likely to cross
Screen,
the first red
it
line.
has not appeared, sir. It is not appeared on the screen.
No, I'll come to that.
Okay, okay, right, right. No
I'll
issues.
share. I'm just
No, no, no
starting.
problem. Please go ahead. I thought you are just trying to. No problem. Go ahead, sir. Please.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll start with, is it now visible?
I'm afraid not, sir.
Okay, just 1 minute again. I started sharing. Start now.
Yeah.
Is it now visible? That screen
Yes,
of.
sir. The house burning. Our title, our poster, title poster. It is.
So the clear warning from almost all scientific agencies globally, that is the UN agencies, the top scientific agencies of different countries like NASA, NOAA, uh, uh, Japan Meteorological Agency, the Hadley Center, Met Office Hadley Center, everywhere this message is coming out that our house is burning. Literally, our house, everyone's, all of us, our house is the earth, and the earth is burning. This particular photograph is from Western US from 2022. As you might recall, in 2022, in the Western US alone, some 5 million, that is 50 lakh acres of forest lands were burned by uncontrollable forest fires. And one must remember, आपको याद रखना चाहिए कि ये हो रहा था सबसे डेवलप्ड अमेरिका का सबसे वन ऑफ द मोस्ट डेवलप्ड एरिया जो कैलिफोर्निया एंड नॉर्थ, जो दुनिया का सबसे अमीर एरिया में है और सबसे डेवलप्ड टेक्नोलॉजिकली डेवलप्ड एरिया में है. पैसा भी सबसे ज़्यादा है, टेक्नोलॉजी भी सबसे ज़्यादा है, लेकिन तब भी ये लोग कुछ नहीं कर पाए. द क्लाइमेट क्राइसिस इज नाउ ओवर पावरिंग द सेम मनी एंड टेक्नोलॉजी दैट हैज partly, largely created this crisis. So why this image is very appropriate for starting today's program is that our house is burning, and that house is not a single family's house. That house is not only one country that is going to flames. That house is not just humanity, that's humankind. That house is actually the entire living earth, In fact, other reports of IPBES or even in the CBD reports, if you look at, it's being said that 1 million species of life are facing extinction within this century. 1 million means 10 lakh species of life are facing extinction. So this is a real threat. So what we are now facing is actually an emergency because we don't have much time. If we go back to IPCC report, they said very clearly, an IPCC report, I must reiterate here, it's not a very radical scientific group that is coming out with these reports. It's only a conservative global scientific body. One must understand that the scientists are nominated from all across the world, from governments. All the governments which are members of IPCC, which are something like 187, 190 countries, they scrutinize this report. So anything very uncomfortable, they ask for these reports and photographs and charts to be taken out. That's also happened in the latest report. Scientists who are involved, they said privately that we were told to take out several charts and graphs which showed that we are actually going beyond the tipping points, beyond the line, red lines, where we can do something to stop the climate crisis. But even with this conservative report, it says it's now or never. And that now means in the next 7 years, we'll have to cut down global emissions by at least 45% and then bring it down to zero before 2050. And this is being talked about. This is the global emissions, global energy and agriculture and transportation, everything. So this is a massive challenge, and now we are facing a crisis where our house is burning, our home, the earth is burning. But let me now come down to some of the, show you some of the latest happening, because these we have been hearing. But what is happening recently? This is, you know, that the coral reefs of the oceans and seas, the coral reefs are being called, it's always being called the rainforest of the oceans. Rainforest of the ocean means they support a huge amount of biodiversity, species diversity in the oceans. In fact, the coral reefs comprise less than 2%, something like 1 point some percent probably of the ocean area, but they harbor, they nurture roughly 25% of the marine biodiversity. So coral reefs are extremely important for sustaining a living earth. But due to these heat waves that is continuously happening, we on the land, in air, we are facing the heat waves. We don't know, we apparently didn't knew what is happening in the oceans. But over the last few years, there were repeated marine heat waves which never happened, or we never knew that this was happening. Only in the last few years, we came to know, the scientists came to know that there are repeated marine heat waves. And when marine heat waves happen, one of the most sensitive, fish are also very sensitive to temperature and pH, but one of the most sensitives are corals. So the corals bleach and die out. And this is a photograph of a same place in 2009. The upper photograph, very colorful living corals with lot of marine life. And the bottom graph is 2019, where the corals have died out, bleached and died out. The living creatures, that is fishes and others, have left. Either they also have died out and they have left. So this is what is happening across the world. As per one scientific study which was released last year, 2022, it was said that roughly 40% of the global coral reefs have already died out. And if the temperature of the sea water, sea surface temperature, average temperatures, they go beyond 1.1, then roughly 90% of coral reefs will be dying out. And that will mean a collapse of the marine biodiversity, marine life. This is just yesterday, 30th May. This is Japan. As we know, Japan is in the higher latitude, 31 to 45 degrees north. Japan is supposed to be reasonably cold, supposed to be. And Japan is just coming out of the spring. Its summer has not yet started, so it's the late spring. But very unusual temperatures are being recorded all across Japan. Above 30-degree temperatures are recorded at many places. The highest temperature recorded in some of the stations was around 33. And this is not only Japan, but I am showing some records. There are hundreds and hundreds of records being broken in Siberia, in the Arctic region, in Canada. As we all know, probably this is coming out in the newspapers, that Canada, Western Canada, recently had 35 degrees Celsius temperature. Last year, if we recall, the temperatures in several of Canada's regions, which is above 45 degrees, were 45 degrees Celsius in the summer, which they have never, the older people also said, and the weather record said it never happened. But this is happening, and this will happen increasingly now. So this is yesterday's record from Japan, and this is what the comment that was there, that today again temperatures up to 33 degrees Celsius with most important records, etc., from 32.9 in Kire, 31.7 Shibushi, more records coming. So these are the kind of records that we are having, very unfortunate records, very undesirable records. हमें ऐसे रिकॉर्ड का जरूरत नहीं है, क्योंकि ये जो एक के बाद एक रिकॉर्ड टेम्परेचर, रिकॉर्ड बाढ़ आ रहा है, रिकॉर्ड तापमान हो रहा है, तो इससे लोगों का परेशानी बढ़ रहा है, लोग मर रहा है, particularly older people, sick people, people with heart and other lung diseases, and people who already have some kind of disability. They are the most suffering the most, and many thousands of people are dying. In fact, there is another study which showed that the excess death in Europe last year 2022, and why I'm saying this is very unusual, I'll explain. 2022 में यूरोप में जो गर्मी के लिए एक्स्ट्रा डेथ, कुछ स्टडी रिसेंटली आया था कुछ महीने पहले, ये दिखा रहा है करीब 12 से 15 हजार एक्स्ट्रा डेथ हुआ है गर्मी के बजाय, और इसमें ज्यादा हिस्सा, द बिगेस्ट पार्ट ऑफ देम आर एल्डरली पीपल हु आर अबव 65, अबव 70, दोस काइंड ऑफ पीपल आर डाइंग in tens of thousands of extra deaths are happening. And if this is happening in rich and well provided Europe, then we can gauge what is happening in countries like India and Bangladesh and all. Recently, Bangladesh, Dhaka, crossed, I think, 39 or 40 degrees, which is extremely unusual for that kind of a humid atmosphere. So why 2022 and those kind of high temperatures are very unusual? One might also recall that from 2020, late 2020 onwards, the global La Nina phase is happening. La Nina and El Nino are two phenomena which are natural. So this is what happens in equatorial Pacific Ocean, is that temperatures vary and the air pressures vary, and during that it adds lot of, during El Nino it adds lot of extra heat to the world, the atmosphere and sea, and during La Nina phase it actually cools the world. But during a La Nina phase in 2022, this kind of massive heat waves across the world took place. And if you recall, हम इंडिया में बात कर रहे हैं, भारत में बात कर रहे हैं, पिछले साल भारत में 5 हीट वेव आए थे, और ये 5 हीट वेव में जो फरवरी, मार्च, अप्रैल में जो हीट वेव आए थे, उसके लिए गेहूं का फसल और बहुत सारे जो फल का ये है, आम से शुरू करके बहुत कुछ, काफी नुकसान हुआ था. तो ये जो चलते जा रहा है, दिस इज नॉट जस्ट टेम्परेचर्स राइजिंग. वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट थ्रेट्स, इसमें सबसे बड़ा खतरा जो है, हमारा जो खाद्य तंत्र है, जो फूड सिस्टम है, फूड प्रोडक्शन सिस्टम है, that food production system is likely to collapse if this kind of thing keeps happening. And we must not forget, I'll come to that again, but to keep it in the background, due to climate change, civilizations have collapsed before. We must not forget that. We know that Harappan civilization declined because the climate changed, the monsoon shifted east. We know that during the late Bronze Ages, the entire chain of civilizations collapsed within 50-60 years because of a massive climate change. Those were natural. But what we are now doing is human-made climate change. So we must keep this in mind while we are discussing this. And as we are showing you, it's not either Japan or the Western US or Canada or India. If you look at this April 23 average land and ocean temperature, it's extremely unusual. The pinkish colors, if it is a light pink, it's warmer than average. If it is medium dark pink, it's much warmer than average. Much warmer means 3 to 5 degrees Celsius. And if it is red, then it is record warmth. And if you look at this map of the world, the projection, the Mercator projection of the world, and this is average, I am saying again, average of April 23, entire April of 2023, last month. If you see this, except a few places all across the world, it is pink, dark pink, and red. Only a few areas are blue. Blue means colder than average. So most of the world is getting very warm, much warmer than average. So that is a cause of concern, because this also has a possibility of triggering some of the positive feedback loop and trigger a collapse if we cross a tipping point. I will come to that tipping point later. But look at this picture of the world. इस दुनिया को देखिए. दुनिया में कुछ जगह छोड़ के ये पूरी जो हालत है, पूरी दुनिया जो औसत हम जानते थे, जिस आबहवा से, जिस मौसम से जिंदगी अच्छा से चल सकते थे, वह चल सकता था, वह चल रहा था, वो मौसम तेजी से बदल रहा है. और ये एक जगह में नहीं, सिर्फ जापान में नहीं, कनाडा में नहीं, यूरोप में नहीं, भारत में नहीं, ये पूरी दुनिया में बदल रहा है. तो ये जो पूरी चेन, ये एक क्राइसिस का इंडिकेशन है, इंगित है. This is an indication of a very fast developing crisis. And as IPCC has said very clearly,
Just stay hold. I'm trying to get the guest. I think it just got disconnected. Interesting stage. Climate change to crisis. जो वातावरण बदलाव से विपत्ति के ओर बढ़ रहे हैं हम. వాతావరణ మార్పు నుంచి వాతావరణ విపత్తు వైపు మనం ప్రయాణం చేస్తా ఉన్నాం. దీన్ని గమనించాలా. ఆధారాలతో మనం బయట పెడతా ఉన్నాం షో. आधार के साथ हम आपको बताने की कोशिश. Only map, only major part you covered. Okay. Right.
Just one point I Indian and then I'll connect it.
जाइए मत. हमारे अतिथि सौम्या दत्ता जी पुनः हमारे से संपर्क बना रहे हैं. एक एक ऐसी मुद्दा जिससे हमारी जिंदगी वर्तमान और भविष्य में प्रश्नार्थक हो, ऐसी स्थिति हम बना चुके हैं. धरती माँ जिस तरह जल रही है, तो हमारे अतिथिगण आ चुके हैं. यस सर.
is it okay?
Yeah, it's okay. Now I'm making you presenter again.
Mhm.
Yes sir, please go ahead. While you present, you see that even your video is.
Okay, let me now come to my screen.
Yeah, here
Is it
you
now
can.
visible? Hmm.
Yes sir.
So,
You can enlarge the screen.
huh.
Yeah,
So as we were
wonderful.
explaining, and we'll before we go into the next visual, let's also, this is very interesting. As I said, not all areas on the earth are equally warm or getting warmer. Particularly if you look at India, if you look at some parts of the US and some parts of the Antarctic Ocean, these are at this point of time was cooler than average. But those are only small areas. Looking at these cold spots, which we called, some skeptics often say, oh, look, it's colder than average, so where is the global warming? What they don't understand is the whole earth act as one system. The earth's climate systems, the earth systems as we call them, the ocean currents, the air, the global air movements, the three air movements, Hadley, Ferrel, and polar circles, all of them are connected. So it might be colder in one place, but on the average, everywhere it is getting hotter and hotter. So that needs to be kept in mind. And this situation, as I said, that both high profile scientific UN agencies as well as top research organizations in the field, they are giving a warning that we are running out of time. And this has been echoed by the UN Secretary General, no less, very clearly again and again. And when he said that climate change is running faster than us and we are running out of time. So even that warning didn't fall on uh, good ears, it fell on deaf ears. So we are really facing a clear crisis. The other factor that is going to be why we are now at this juncture, why are we saying that this is now, this 2 years will probably be extremely bad. Again went out. What is happening?
It has come, sir.
It has come. Okay,
It has come. It has appeared on this.
let me see my screen also. Huh. Now it is visible.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So you'll have to edit this in parts out. I
Yeah, yeah,
can't.
please. Man, no
So
problem.
as we said, from late 2020 to 2020 to 2022, and even first 2 3 months of 23, we were going through a period of La Nina. And La Nina, as I said, as we all know, is a period where the world cools down. But this year, June, July onward, all indications in the equatorial Pacific are showing that the opposite of La Nina, that is the more feared El Nino, will start. And when an El Nino becomes operational, that phase becomes El Nino phase. Now, right now, it has gone into a neutral phase. But by late June or July, when the El Nino phase starts in Pacific, in equatorial Pacific, there will be additional heating of the world. And this additional heating, what is additional? Because we have put so much of greenhouse gas in the atmosphere that is trapping the heat. So that is the greenhouse warming. But El Nino will add additional heat. So what we faced in the last 3 years, this next 2 years, 2023, June, July onwards to 2024, it is likely to be much, much worse. And as many scientists are saying, that 2023 and 24 might set, most likely 76% chance that 2024 will set a new temperature record, and 2024 there is an 8% chance mathematically, statistically, of crossing the red line of 1.5 degrees Celsius. Let us recall that the Paris Agreement, which was signed by almost all countries in 2015 in Paris, in the COP21, we are all there, that says, it is the commitment, so-called commitment of the global governments, all governments in the world, that they will try their best to keep the temperature rise from pre-industrial average temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius by what date? Even by 2021. So if we are looking at a rise of 1.5 degree, even temporarily, in 2024, then this is a far more worse, far worse situation that we are facing. This is a real emergency we are facing. And if we, not only these scientists who are predicting this, if you look at the WMO report, World Meteorological Organization report, which was released, as I said, that said in the next 5 years, that means 23, 4, 5, 6, 7, by 27, it is very likely that the globe will cross 1.5 degrees Celsius, at least temporary. They are saying at least temporary, but we don't know if once the temperature crosses, the average temperature of the year crosses 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial, many of the tipping points, the feedback mechanisms might be triggered.
ऐसी अहम मुद्दा, దిస్ ఇస్ అన్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ టాపిక్, చాలా ముఖ్యమైనటువంటి అంశం. మధ్య మధ్యలో సాంకేతిక इब्बंदुलु वस्तूने उन्नाई. सांकेतिक कारण बीच बीच में ये रुकावट आ रही है. Technical difficulties, an important topic, but don't go away. This would be one of the best topics, I can guarantee you. Yes sir, you're the presenter. You said by 2027 it may trigger as the 1.5 degrees temperature change is happening much faster, maybe by 2027 itself. Are you able to hear, sir?
No, I can't see even the screen fully. There is some kind of the moment I log into your
Don't worry.
channel, there is
Don't worry. Is it okay now?
no. Let me try. Let me try to go back.
Again, don't get disconnected. Is it okay now?
No, I can't see. I just see your, like in the beginning, I just see top of your face, the forehead and the part of the specs, and I can't see any other
Yeah,
thing
don't
on the
worry.
screen.
Maybe this is the network
Let's
problem. Don't worry.
mm,
Just stay in. I've already made you the presenter.
okay, but I'll have to see this
Now I'm making you the
sharing.
presenter. Presenter, go ahead. That 1.5 degrees centigrade we may
Huh,
see it sooner by 2027.
right. I'll have to now
Trigger,
go to
trigger, trigger. You said greenhouse gases, and then you stopped there
huh.
at methane and all.
Is it visible now?
Very much, sir. Yes.
Yes. So sorry for this interruptions of
No issue, sir.
technology and
Please go ahead.
interference.
No, no, please go ahead. Go ahead.
So
Go ahead.
this
This is
is
important, sir.
what we are showing. We must keep this in mind that in the early years or early decades of the last century, that is the 20th century, we still had a lot of chances. But if you look at the red line, the up and downs are yearly variations. But if you look at the red line from around 1960s onwards, it's going up very sharply, going up. There is no question of any downward trend, and you can see that thin blue band, which is the range that we might reach in the next few years, next 5 years, which also is, there is a possibility, outside possibility, that we will cross the 1.5 degrees Celsius. You can see very clearly. These are the projections. And the red line is the actual record, instrumental record, and the blue band is the projection. And these kind of things, why scientists are saying this, it's based on a lot of studies and lot of data. These data are multiple parameters of the climate are recorded, but one of the most important that normal people understand is near surface temperature. That means when people, meteorological offices say this is the temperature, average temperature, that is called near surface or 2-meter temperature, 2 meter above the surface. The weather stations are placed there. If you look at this, if we look at the northern hemisphere, because most of the people live in the northern hemisphere, if you look at this is last 12 months average, that is of 2022, with the latest normal. The normal is calculated as the last 30 years, the last 3 decades average temperature, and this is again, this is not from the pre-industrial average, from where we need to compare. This is just from the last 30 years average, how hot or how much warmer different places of Earth was in 2022. If you look at this again, there are spots of blue, no doubt, there are spots of blue, but most of the inhabited hemisphere, because the southern hemisphere have parts of Africa and Southern America and Australia. So larger part of the southern hemisphere is ocean, large part of the northern hemisphere is land. So if you look at this northern hemisphere where most of the people live, it's almost always reddish. That means much warmer. And many of the northern areas are also very clearly much warmer, 3 degrees Celsius or more, even above the last 30 years average. So again, we are not comparing with the much colder periods of 120-30 years, but this is just comparing with the last 30 years average. And within that short time, we are crossing these limits repeatedly. So what is happening, and let me also explain from this the concept I was talking about of the tipping points and the collapse, the catastrophic collapse by these feedback mechanisms. If we look at it, look at on the top left side, the Greenland map, just top and right of Canada. And below that, we can see a cold area, blue area. And that's very surprising, because rest of the Atlantic Ocean is warming up, and that small part, it's not actually small, because in this sphere you are seeing the entire world's top portion, the northern half, but that portion is cooling. And the reason is, if you look at just Greenland just above it, lot of ice is melting. So the ice melt water is dropping to the northern Atlantic Ocean, and that is making that part of the Atlantic, northern Atlantic, उत्तरी अटलांटिक का उस हिस्सा ठंडा हो रहा है. तो ये लोग सोचेंगे ये तो ठंडा हो रहा है, अच्छा बात है, लेकिन ये एक बहुत खतरनाक चीज हो रहा है, because if that part cools down below a certain part, then the global ocean current, which is the main carrier of heat from equatorial regions to the polar regions, धरती का जो heat imbalance है, हमारा इक्वेटोरियल रीजियन में जो बहुत ज़्यादा सोलर एनर्जी मिलता है, नॉर्दर्न रीजियन में कम मिलता है, तो वहाँ सबसे ज़्यादा हीट को लेके जाते हैं जो ओशन करंट है, समुद्र का ऊपर और नीचे से जो करंट चलते हैं, और वो बहुत बड़ा हिस्सा है. तो दैट ओशन करंट, वन ऑफ द मेन कंपोनेंट इज कॉल्ड द गल्फ स्ट्रीम, which keeps Europe much warmer than similar latitudes in Canada. If this Gulf Stream collapses, large parts of Europe, due to global warming, will go into a very cold phase. So that's also a part of the climate change phenomenon. And we can very clearly see that part of North Atlantic, where this cold water is dropping from Greenland ice sheet, is getting really cold. And scientists have measured in the last 40 to 45 years, the Gulf Stream, that is the global current in the northern Atlantic part, this has actually slowed down by nearly 30%. So within this short period, these changes normally, naturally takes tens of thousands of years, sometimes thousands of years, sometimes tens of thousands of years. In the last 40 years, there is a 30% cooling, slowing down of the Gulf Stream. And this indicates that within the next 50-60 years, there is a possibility that the Gulf Stream will partly collapse, and that will create havoc across the world weather. So this kind of things are actually going on. This is called a triggering mechanism or a feedback mechanism. And this is happening in the northern Atlantic, and mostly on top of that, the Arctic Ocean, which is generally used to be covered by ice to a large extent in winter, nowadays it is getting, as we have all seen, ice free. Large parts are ice free. Why? That is a feedback mechanism. That is, the cause increases the effect, cause causes the effect increases the cause, that increased cause have more effect, that more effect increases the cause. So this is a vicious cycle. This is called a feedback mechanism or positive feedback mechanism. There is nothing positive in terms of our well-being, but this is called positive because the cause and effect increases each other continuously. And if it crosses a certain tipping point, which is a threshold, then we don't need to do anything. The earth systems will keep increasing each other. This effect, the cause will increase the effect will increase the cause, this will go on, and the entire system will collapse. So this is a real threat now with many other systems, earth systems. So in the Arctic region, this is one feedback mechanism. And this is becoming more and more likely because the very sensitive Arctic region, several studies have shown, is actually warming roughly 5 to 6 times faster than the global average warming. The kind of warming that we might find in India or Pakistan or Africa or Europe, the Arctic region is warming 5 to 6 times faster than that. And the Arctic region is extremely sensitive to any warming. So these are warning signals that the scientists are showing us that we must be very, very careful about, and there is no more time left. Let me now come to another factor which normally is not talked about in the climate circles, which is the solar cycles and solar input. As we all know, supposing the sun gives us less energy, a little less active, then the earth will be a little cooler. And this happens over thousands of years, over long cycles, but this also happens roughly every 11 years. The sun has an 11-year cycle, which is called a solar or sunspot cycle or solar cycle. If we look at these picture, the sun is in the background, as you all can see. The three peaking curves are there. Cycle 22, 23 and 24 all are past now. Cycle 24 ended in December 2021. Sorry, December 2020. So right now we are in the cycle 24. Initial years of cycle 25. Sorry. If you look at it carefully, I'll show other graphs of this. Cycle 2022 and 23 were much more active. Whereas from starting around late 2009, cycle 24 is much less active. That means in the last 11-12 years, the sun has given off much little less energy than is normal. That means Earth should have cooled down a bit. But in spite of this, the 10 warmest years are all after 2009 or 2008. So this is an indication that in spite of the sun giving less energy, where the earth should have cooled down a little bit, the earth is actually warming up just by the greenhouse effect. Last 2 years, the sun, last 2-3 years, the sun was cooler. The La Nina phase was there, which also cools the earth. In spite of that, 2022, we had a
बने रहिए. Again, I'm trying to get him back. Such an important discussion. Don't go away. What has happened in 2022 इम्पोर्टेंट, कितना अहमियत है इस समाचार, क्या हो रहा है आर्कटिक सर्कल से, किस तरह गर्मी तेजी से बढ़ रही है, हाउ वार्मर द आर्कटिक रीजन इज बिकमिंग very clearly. Yes, sir, I'm making you the presenter. Such an important phase, 2022. वहां से पकड़ते हैं हम. Yep.
but it's not taking it.
Yes, sir. Trying to get him back. It's disconnected again. Such an important phase. जहां बदलाव, वातावरण, मौसम का बदलाव कहते हैं, वातावरण की बदलाव से वातावरण विपत्तिक साइड जा रहे हैं हम. విపత్కర పరిస్థితి, ఒక మార్పు, వాతావరణ మార్పు నుంచి విపత్కరమైనటువంటి పరిస్థితులకు వెళ్తా ఉన్నాం. ఫ్రమ్ ఏ చేంజ్, క్లైమేట్ చేంజ్ into a crisis stage we have already landed, with so beautifully being explained. Don't go away.
You can make me.
Yeah, I'm making you, I'm removing the older ones so that there will not be confusion. You are the presenter, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir, from 2022 you said
Okay.
has
I'll
become
come to that.
so beautifully explained, sir. The Arctic region getting more warmer, 5 to 6 times more warmer than the natural.
So that was one point. And the third area that I am explaining is now right from till the last, actually last 11 years, or you can consider the last 22 years, the sun was giving less than normal energy. I'll explain that. These are the last two cycles. You can see that up to 2021 beginning from around 1992 or 3. So these, the first cycle, which is the 23rd cycle, on the left hand side, the sun gave some energy, some more energy. But last 11 years, on the right hand graph, is graph distribution, this is much lower than the earlier ones. And if we go into a long-term record, this is a long-term record of the solar cycles from around 1900 to 2020. So if you look at this record, the last cycle, which is on the extreme right cycle, you see more than 100 and almost 120 years record. This was probably the weakest cycle, the last 10-11 years. That means during the last 10-11 years, the sun has given much lower, or at least somewhat lower amount of radiation energy to Earth and all around than it has given in the last 100 years. So sun was in a cool phase. But in spite of that, the temperatures are rising, the climate crisis is deepening. So what will happen, as we are now seeing in the 25th cycle, the sun has become a little more active. That means we can see many more sunspots now. The sun is giving a little more energy. That means when the El Nino comes by late June or July, the solar cycle picks up, because this is early phase of the 11-year solar cycle. When the solar cycle picks up, because it goes from a very low, like you can see in all the circles, it starts from a very low, it goes up to highest, then falls back again to very low. So now we are in the rising phase, early rising phase. In next 2-3 years, when the solar cycle picks up, the sun gives a little more and a little more than that energy. The El Nino comes in, and our greenhouse gases keeps building up. The kind of temperature rise, kind of climate destabilization that we will be facing can only be imagined. This is also something that needs to be kept in mind, though all of us know it. Sorry. This is a graph of, is it still there, Dr. Reddy?
Yes, sir, it is there.
Okay.
The graph.
Sorry for this, because the disturbance in the system. But if you look at this graph, this is very interesting. Why we are all saying now that the global climate governance system, the global ecological governance system has completely failed to address the crisis. If you look at this rising graph, the temperatures are rising, becoming from bluish to whitish to yellowish to pink and to red and to brown. The temperatures are rising, and this is for a very long period of time, as you can see. But in between, these markers are there. The last one is the Glasgow Pact 2021 on the top. Before that, the Paris Agreement, the climate kept worsening, the temperatures kept rising, the carbon dioxide amounts kept rising. Before that, all the other climate agreements, the IPCC setup, everything. See, all these so-called actions that the UN and the global governments have done have actually not affected anywhere in the climate destabilization. In fact, the climate destruction is happening as if none of these global climate agreements, ecological agreements exist, as if there is no climate crisis. So this is a reminder that actually the UN and the global political leaders of most countries are fooling people and taking a grave risk with not only today's generation, but the generations and all other life forms that will be coming in the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 100, 200 years. So this is a grave danger that we are stepping into. This is something that we as citizens, we must all take notice. I am repeating this. This graph clearly shows that in spite of these agreements and treaties and international agreements on climate, Paris Climate Accord, last 2021's Glasgow Climate Pact, Paris Climate Accord, IPCC setup, or Doha, Durban, none of these, the Cancun and Copenhagen climate summits, the climate system kept on worsening, the temperatures kept on rising, carbon dioxide concentrations, greenhouse gas concentration kept on rising almost without any impact. This is a very surprising, but this is what the earth is showing. Don't believe in what the leaders, so-called leaders, are saying. See and try to understand what the earth is showing, that this is what happened. If there was real action, things would have been different. This upward rising curve would have tapered, would have stabilized, and probably would be falling down now. But none of this is visible, as if, I am saying this again, as if ऐसे लगता है कि इतनी सारे एग्रीमेंट, इंटरनेशनल एग्रीमेंट, 2021 का ग्लासगो पैक्ट क्लाइमेट पैक्ट, 15 का पेरिस क्लाइमेट एग्रीमेंट, उसका पहले का कियोटो प्रोटोकॉल, बहुत पहले का 97 का, इन बिटवीन दोहा एंड डरबन एंड कोपेनहेगन एंड कैनकून, ऑल दिस एग्रीमेंट्स, दिखने में लगता है जो धरती दिखा रहा है किसी का कोई असर नहीं है, मतलब किसी ने कोई काम नहीं किया जो क्लाइमेट क्राइसिस को स्टेबलाइज कर सकते हैं, इसको कम कर सकते हैं. तो ये धरती क्लियरली डेटा आंकड़ा से दिखा रहा है, ये देखो भाई, आप लोगों का जो आपका लीडर जो समझाते हैं, जो हम एग्रीमेंट कर लिया, बहुत बड़ा तीर मार लिया, मोदी जी वहां जाके ये बोल दिया, हमने लाइफस्टाइल फॉर एनवायरनमेंट कर दिया, हमने तो सोलर एसोसिएशन बना लिया, कहीं कुछ परिवर्तन नहीं हुआ. जितनी एमिशंस हो रहे थे, जितना पोल्यूशन कर रहे थे, हम और ज्यादा पोल्यूशन कर रहा है. धरती उसको सीधा दिखा रहा है. यहाँ कोई पॉलिटिक्स नहीं है, यहाँ कोई इकोनॉमिक डेटा का जगलरी नहीं है, ये धरती में रिकॉर्ड है. तो ये दिखता है हमें, जब तक लोग इसको समझ के अपना हाथ में एक्शन नहीं लेंगे तब ये चलते रहेंगे। ये मैंने अभी टुवर्ड्स द एंड आ जाऊंगा, लेकिन इसके क्या क्या हो रहा है ये थोड़ा सा ये भी हमें देखना चाहिए। जैसे हम शुरू कर रहे थे, ये पिछले साल का है। दिल्ली का 2 वेदर स्टेशन और लगभग 50 डिग्री सेल्सियस तापमान छू रहा था, 49.2 एंड 49.1। और ये भी हमें याद करना चाहिए, जहाँ सरकारी वेदर स्टेशन होता है वो सबसे गर्म जगह में नहीं होता है। आप यदि घना बस्ती में within a congested area of a city, if you put a weather station, that weather station will be showing at least 4 to 6 degrees higher than this temperature. That means in many of our cities, बहुत सारे शहरों में, घनी आबादी वाला शहरों में तापमान आज के दिन में 50 डिग्री छू रहा है, 50 डिग्री से ऊपर हो रहा है। And one must also recall that at a temperature of 55-60, if you put a kettle of water on a gas stove, much before it boils, there are bubbles that come out. What are those? The dissolved air and oxygen that is there in the water starts coming out. हमारे खून में भी, the blood that we have also has lot of dissolved air and oxygen, because that's how the blood carries the oxygen to all the cells. And if the temperature gets up to 50 degrees, 55 degrees, a little by little, that dissolved oxygen and dissolved air in the blood will start coming out if we cannot control that temperature. This is a very grave health risk in all those areas where temperatures are reaching 50 degrees and above. Our body has a temperature control mechanism, but that cannot operate beyond a certain range. So this is something what we must understand, that already, as I said, with a La Nina phase, with the sun not as active as earlier, our greenhouse gases have already caused our cities to reach nearly 50 degrees Celsius in Delhi. And this is a weather station. Again, within a congested area, this temperature will be much higher. This is another of the grave risk which is connected but not entirely contributed by climate change. Our life, human life, even if we look at it at a selfish way, it completely depends on other lives. We are dependent for food on plants, on animals. We are dependent for oxygen on plant life. We are dependent for our medicines for plant and animal life. So entire life system, even the human life system, depends on the plant and animal life and the variety of plant and animal life that we have on the earth. And scientists have estimated that roughly 8 to 10 million species might be there, maybe more. We have only identified 1.9 million, that is 19 lakh species identified and somewhat documented. But what is happening over the last 30, 40, 50 years? Earlier, the wild animals in the wilderness, including small, medium, large, very large, they used to constitute roughly 70 to 80% of the total animal biomass, even the mammal biomass. Today, amongst the mammals of the world, it is only 4% which are wild mammals. That means we have killed off, by both our changes in the land, we have cut down forest, we have cleared the grasslands, we have converted everything to either agricultural land or townships or industries or whatever, or recreational areas. So the wilderness areas have been wiped out. The wilderness diversity, biodiversity, species diversity, how many different types
Don't go away. We are going to get the guest back again. Important phase as to how the biodiversity is also becoming scarce here. So it is a scary situation. Once they become very scarce here, our life becomes very, very difficult to survive upon.
Once you,
Yes, sir. I am making you presenter again.
Hmm.
No problem, sir. This is what happens. This is what
I
is
know.
happening with this show, and what would happen once the sun starts giving more
And
energy,
this is,
and along with the pollution already in the form of carbon dioxide, methane, all those gases lined up in the atmosphere.
we
What
are
would happen to us in another 2 or 3 years? God knows.
we are
And what would
in for
happen?
some big shock.
Big shock. And Gulf Stream, if
Hmm.
it also starts moving very, very
Yes,
less frequently or with a less speed, what would happen to Europe? It will become much, much colder than Canada as what we are watching it now, because the Arctic region and all, they are getting more warmer, 6 times more warmer than the normal. Again, he got disconnected. I'm just getting him back. Just don't go away. An important phase from climate change to crisis, climate crisis. Did we land? Now all these evidences would make you to understand that we have already lined up to crisis rather than change. And what a better way than having such wonderful guests like Mr. Soumya Datta. Yes, sir, I'm making you the presenter again.
you are targeted, I think clearly.
Yes, sir. God is great. And such an important, because all the world leaders are making fun of our trust in them. The facts and figures, what the Mother Earth is showing is something, and those meetings, Paris and all those COP 26, 27 is nothing but far from truth. Again, he got disconnected. The Earth is becoming warmer and warmer and warmer, and with solar cycles becoming more. Sir, got disconnected again, sir. Yep. Yeah, please. Yep. So the guest, thankful to him, thanks to him, because he's just trying to connect again and again in spite of these technical hitches which DRTSPR channels have been facing right from the day we have started them on May 26, 2020. Third anniversary we are celebrating, but because we provide genuine and correct information, those in at the helm are fearing these channels and wonderful guests presentation with evidences, how they are making us think the other way when the mother earth is getting more warmer and warmer, and by 1.5 degrees centigrade we'll reach 2025 to 27 itself. Oh goodness, again he got disconnected.
I'll connect again with the next stream.
Yeah, please.
Uh,
So we're giving a trouble to our wonderful guest. He wants to disseminate the information in a rightful way. See the problems DRTSPR channels have been facing. Our people have been celebrating that someone Indian is going to head this organization. Yes, sir, you are the presenter.
Is it visible?
Yes, sir. Visible, but again, you have gone offline. Climate change to a crisis, we have already landed. That is a big news from this show. And the guest is trying his level best, but even the biodiversity is threatened. The mammals with which we have been, yeah. Yes, sir. Please go ahead, sir. I think now. Go ahead,
Once you
sir.
again, once you again do this
Yeah, I'll make
present,
you presenter once. Yeah, I'm removing all those which were there.
or let hold on. Let me send last 2 3 screens to you.
Yeah.
You show that. I will not change. I'll just you just change from your end. Let me just send those to you.
Yeah. We are taking so much of pain to show what is happening on the actual front. That's why the guests are also wonderfully prepared to give you the proper information, correct information with, and it is evidence based, and it is evidence based so that you understand, because through audio and visual presentation you will clearly understand and you can cross check yourself, because we provide you information so that you are a constitutional authority, you are a raja of your life, you are a king of your life, queen of your life. You have to decide, once you have the information, how truthful this information is. When it threatens your present and your future in disarray, in danger, how is that you are still being carried away by the pep talk by these politicians, administrators, and their pampered media? But what is happening actually on the earth front? How earth is becoming so warmer and warmer, and how it is going to be more warmer in the next 2 or 3 years? What would happen to us? Yes, sir. Please.
You can start. I sent you just five images. We can take 1.5 minutes each and then go.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
sent it by signal.
Yeah.
Sent
Okay,
it by
sir.
signal.
Oh, signal.
Hmm.
Oh, signal means again I have to.
Or I can send it to WhatsApp also if you want.
WhatsApp you send, sir. WhatsApp if you send, it will be better. See, we are taking so much of pain to make you to understand as to what is happening on the surface of the earth and what is happening to mother earth, why it is becoming warmer, and who is responsible, and what these COP27 meetings have been doing. Is it helping us? So many concrete buildings, so many cars. Instead of using public transport in a proper way, you are destroying forests, reserve areas, you are encroaching water bodies, killing the spirit of essence of living. Then how can you survive? Yeah, I'm sharing these photographs so that our guest Soumya Datta ji can explain. Yeah. Yes, sir.
The first one, if you show.
Is
uh,
this the one?
yes, yes. Start from this one and then we'll quickly go to one of the other, one after the
Please.
other. So this is a temperature anomaly again of the world. You can see recent, very recent. The dates are also there. You can see again, as I was saying, it is, one can say it is fortunate for us in India that the last year, in spite of last year and the last few months, actually, this is from 19th of May of this year. So if you think, India is not really warm, it's actually much colder than usual. Most part of India. India is so big, so you can see, except in the far south one bit and the southeast in one bit, rest of India was quite cooler, cooler than usual. And right now we are in Delhi. I am in Delhi, and Delhi is I'm sitting sometimes without a fan, sometimes just a fan is very comfortable. But that do not mean that climate change is not happening. which a lot of skeptics use this kind of isolated data, isolated events. If you look at the entire world, this was 19th May of 2023, and I have shown you average of April, of average of entire 2022. This is much warmer, and the risk is the northern latitudes, the Arctics, the Canada, Siberia, these are getting much, much warmer. As you can see, the red color, the brown colors in the northern latitudes. And these are, apart from melting the ice faster, these are also causing another very, very dangerous thing, which the scientists have called the methane bomb. मीथेन बॉम्ब एक बोला जाता है. बॉम्ब क्यों? क्योंकि मीथेन कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड से शॉर्ट ड्यूरेशन ऑफ 20 इयर्स कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड से करीब 80-85 गुना ज्यादा गर्मी करते हैं मीथेन का ईच एंड एवरी मॉलिक्यूल. सो एक कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड मॉलिक्यूल से एक मीथेन मॉलिक्यूल शॉर्ट ड्यूरेशन में 80-85 गुना ज्यादा गर्मी पैदा करते हैं. So if lot of methane comes out in the atmosphere, which is happening very fast for the last few years, then it will be end of any possibility of stabilizing the climate. Can we show the next one?
Yeah.
So this is what I was talking about. Look at both the curve. The blue one is carbon dioxide and the red one is methane. Both have shot up very high. Carbon dioxide from around 1880 to 1900 average, carbon dioxide percentage in the air has increased by 50%, but methane percentage has increased by 250%. And as we said, in the shorter duration, methane is 80 to 85 times as potent, as powerful a greenhouse gas as carbon dioxide. And that methane getting 250% increase in the last 130-40 years is really, really dangerous for the Earth's climate system stability. And as we have seen in the last visual, northern latitudes, the Siberian areas, the Canada permafrost areas, Siberian permafrost, Arctic seas, these are warming up 5 to 6 times faster. This one, if you look at the northern upper portions, northern latitudes, these are not also red, these are brown sometimes. That means these are warming up very, very fast. So these are actually causing lot of methane to come out, which are frozen in the ground, called permafrost, permanently frozen ground, and the Arctic sheet, shallow depths of the Arctic sheet. So these is adding lot of methane recently, and this is being called a methane bomb. If this builds up quickly, then there will be no possibility, even if we stop everything, if we stop traveling altogether, if we switch off all our electricity, if we switch off all our power plants, if we stop eating or breathing even, the climate system will collapse on its own. So that's the biggest danger, because with this warming on the northern, faster warming in the northern latitudes, उत्तरी गोलार्ध में जो ऊपरी हिस्सा है, बहुत सारे मीथेन एंड कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड का स्टोरेज है, और वो गर्म होने से बर्फ पिघल के उसके जो जमीन जमा हुआ मिट्टी, उसके अंदर से बायोमास सड़ के उसमें मीथेन बहुत ज़्यादा निकलना शुरू हो गया है. और ये हो सकता है आने वाले कुछ सालों में ये एक टिपिंग पॉइंट में चले जाए और हमारा हाथ से क्लाइमेट को स्टेबलाइज करना, क्लाइमेट का विपर्जय का रोकने का सारे उपाय निकल जाएगा. कैन वी गो टू द नेक्स्ट वन आफ्टर द methane graphs? On the next two, please. So this is also one very important graph. This shows the ocean temperature in the equatorial region, and one has to understand the ocean temperature in the equatorial region has a very large role in controlling global climates. Whether we will have more cyclones or less cyclones, whether we have powerful cyclones or less powerful cyclones, whether there will be massive rainfall or there will be drought, all these are largely controlled by the equatorial ocean areas. And these equatorial ocean areas in the central part, you can see, are becoming warmer and much warmer. Warmer means warmer than normal means yellow. Much warmer is pinkish and reddish. if you look at this, also look at below India, both Bay of Bengal, Arabian Sea, and the Indian Ocean down south. All of them are becoming and become much warmer. So this means the number of cyclones, the power of cyclones, this will increase. These are also increasing. There are evidence for that. The rainfall disruptions will increase. Sometimes there will be massive rainfalls, flooding. Sometimes there will be droughts. So this kind of disruptions are happening because the global oceans are becoming much warmer than normal. And last point in this one must recollect, apart from the life that resides in the ocean, the marine biodiversity, is that the oceans are also the store of the largest amount of carbon dioxide they are absorbing. And over the last several decades, the global warming heat, more than 90%, roughly 93% of the additional heat has gone into the oceans. And now even the deeper waters of the ocean below 700 meters depth are warming up. Can we have the next, please? This is
Yes,
just a record for your perusal. These are the warmest years on instrumental record for the last 140 years. Instrumented record of global average temperatures are available from thousands of weather stations across the world for the last roughly 140 years. And you can see this, the warmest 10 years are all after 2009, from 2010 and 2022 and 2016. These are very close. Some estimates show 2016 is the warmest, some show 2020 is the warmest, and 2020 again, we'll have to also recall that 2020 was the year when COVID hit all the world. So many of our transportation was stopped, many of our factories were closed. In spite of all that, 2020 is supposed to be, the record says it is the warmest year on record, at least tying with 2016 when there was a El Nino, very strong El Nino in 2016. So if 2020 with not an El Nino, beginning a La Nina phase, with globally COVID heat, industry, transport all stopped, if can reach that kind of temperature, what will happen in late 23 and 24 and beyond is left to your imagination, or better than imagination, left to your understanding. So very soon will this 10 record years will be obsolete, and will create every new year, almost every new year will be a record year. Next, please. So we'll end by showing this. We'll not go any further. This is what the average was. This is a 12-month running mean. Means, as we know, the temperature anywhere on earth and all across the earth keeps varying from day to day, week to week, month to month, season to season. So that's why we take a 12-month running average or mean. That means what is the average of the 12 months of the year. So that temperature keeps changing, comes up and down, but due to different reasons, El Nino, La Nina. Some years it's hotter, some years lower. But above all, the temperature rise is happening, and the two lines that are there, the 2016 and 2019, not even 2020. So you can see that every new normal, this red line, the green line was there, which was very high, which was 2014, and now we are going above and above and above. And these small differences mean a lot to the climate systems, as we have seen earlier. So every 2, 3, 4 years, we are creating a new normal level above which the new records will be set up. So this is again, which we started with, that these records are not desired records. These are not positive records. These are clear indications that the earth is facing a massive emergency, a massive crisis. And the way, as we have already also shown you, with all the accords, agreements, global agreements on climate and ecology, nothing has changed. That means those have not worked what they are saying. So it is high time that as citizens we understand this entire farce that is being played on us, this game that is being played on us by global capitalist and global corporate and government world, and we take reins in our own hand. The first step is understanding. And I think channels like DRTSPR and others who take these messages to people clearly, not by saying, not by opinion, like the Godi media, but with clear data, clear information. All the data are there for you to judge. There is no hiding facts, no hiding data. So it is very clear that the earth, humanity, and entire life systems is facing a massive challenge, and we don't have much time. We are again ending this with the IPCC's last report's words. It is now or never to take urgent action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very, very much. And this is for today. I think it is very clear. The climate change is not the term, the climate crisis. वातावरण बदलाव नहीं है, वातावरण विपत्कర परिस्थिति में जा चुका है. వాతావరణం మార్పు కాదు, వాతావరణం విపత్కరమైనటువంటి పరిస్థితులకు వెళ్ళిపోయింది. ఇన్ మీనింగ్ యువర్ లైఫ్, the present life is more dangerous. And when it happens, what is that you are going to give to your kith and kin? That is why we keep telling in the every show, become selfish. Until and unless you become selfish, how? By understanding. When? How will you understand? By Soumya Datta like guests giving you such wonderful information with data, with science, with logic, truth, so that you decide, because you are a constitutional authority. क्योंकि हर एक नागरिक को जागरूक होना चाहिए. हम समाचार दे रहे हैं आपको ऐसे अतिथिगण से, ताकि आप निर्णय ले सके, क्योंकि आप संविधान हो, क्योंकि आपका वर्तमान और भविष्य खतरे में है. क्या आप खुद गर्ज नहीं होंगे? क्या दोगे आपके बच्चों को कल, जब आपका जीना ही मुश्किल है? ఇప్పుడు మనకు బ్రతకడమే దుర్భరమైనప్పుడు మీ పిల్లలకి ఏమి ఇస్తారు? ఇక్కడైనా స్వార్థం అవసరం లేదా? అందుగురించే ఆలోచన చేయండి. ఓ సరి అయిన సమాచారం ఇటువంటి అతిథుల ద్వారా మీకు ఇస్తా ఉన్నాం. ఎందుకంటే మీరే రాజ్యాంగ వ్యవస్థ. ఇప్పుడున్నటువంటి ఈ వేడి, రేపు మన పరిస్థితి ఏమవుతుంది, అది ఆలోచన చేయండి. అందుగురించే మీకు పదే పదే ఇటువంటి అతిథుల ద్వారా ఒక సరి అయినటువంటి సమాచారం అందిస్తూ ఉన్నాం. ఇప్పుడు కాకపోతే ఇంకెప్పుడు లేదు. आज नहीं तो कल नहीं. आप सोचिए, if not today, it will never. So everything is there in your hands. The climate change, stop talking about climate change. Now we have landed into climate crisis. What our leaders, all these agreements have been saying, we have shown you how Mother Earth is clearly becoming warmer and warmer and warmer. And if methane happens to overtake carbon dioxide, what would happen to us? The changes will become. So everything is there in your hands. Whatever is there in our hands, we are trying to put it across to the world in a proper way, with full of data and figures to understand, to make you easily understand. Do support DRTSPR channel, Citizen DRTSPR channel, Environment People DRTSPR channels. They are all larger public interest. This show also will come in two repeated shows, will be on DRTSPR channel and Environment People DRTSPR channel, because this is more important rather than anything else. The politics and everything else will come later, because your survival in this present is more important, so that you can secure something at least for your own kith and kin. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Take care, sir. Bye.
Bye.